Alright guys, so I figured we would just end the year with a type of video that isn't something you would normally expect. Normally you would expect a pair of true wireless earbuds, but today we're going to check out a very interesting pair of open back planar magnetic headphones. The pair that we're going to check out is the Moondrop Venus. Now first off, this is not a cheap pair of headphones. I mean, it does come in at $599, which just already puts it out of a lot of people's price range when it comes to buying audio products. But if you're used to looking at headphones, especially planar magnetic and open back headphones, you'll know where this kind of sits amongst some of the other competitors. Now to start with, the company Moondrop, we have checked out some products from them in the past. They've had some interesting true wireless earbuds, but the last pair of headphones that I checked out from them, which was the Void, I was not impressed with at all. But what I was impressed with is the company was willing to kind of recall or put a halt to the production of those headphones to fine tune them and fix them after they've seen people's reviews and opinions on them. So if a company is willing to listen to consumers or reviewers and want to make their product better, I am always willing to check out their stuff. And this one's kind of like their middle tier pair of headphones coming in at $600. They do have an electrostatic pair of headphones that is closer to $1,000, but that actually kind of requires a whole different equipment. So let's go ahead and start with what the Venus comes with in the box. It gives you two different sets of cables. You get a silver plated 3.5mm to 4.4 balance cable. Now the 3.5mm is what plugs into each ear cup. The 4.4 is balanced in, so you would have to have a specific amp to be able to plug this into. And then the other cable is a braided fabric 3.5 to 3.5mm angled cable. And I do like the decision to go with an angled cable. It's easier to plug into stuff and not feel like it's sticking straight out of the device, and it's easier to remove from the device without having to actually pull on the cable. Now the headphones themselves are a beast. I mean, they are big, they are large, they're heavy. They are made completely of aluminum. You can see it basically looks like it has a full metal body. And on the top, it kind of looks like a cheese grater with all the little holes. And then the actual design on the ear cups or the grills is very nice. It just really stands out. You can see the V-shaped design, but it is sharp. This one definitely could cut cheese, and it could probably cut your finger if you don't watch how you angle it or move around your headphones. Now it also has a pleather suspension strap. Now there's really not a whole lot of padding here, and you would expect it to have a little bit more, especially considering how heavy the headphones are. But I felt like it kept these pretty well balanced on my head. I didn't feel a whole lot of weight pulling down, and I think that the headphones had just enough of a clamp force on my head to keep them from feeling like all the weight was pulling down on the top. Now I will say, if you have a smaller head or if you move your head around a lot, these probably will move around quite a bit, but they do have large ear cups, so if they do move around, I think your ears are going to stay inside the whole time. The pleather material they use here, it's very soft. I found these to be really comfortable. My ears sat completely inside the ear cups anyway. And this is an open back pair of headphones. Now keep that in mind, because anything that you're listening to, anybody around you is going to hear absolutely everything that you're listening to, and that's just by design. That just causes these to have a much more open feel to them. But as far as the drivers they're using, they are using 100mm planar magnetic drivers. They are using dual-sided N52 magnets, which is usually found in more expensive planar magnetic headphones. So they didn't really cut costs when it came to making these. And I really like the way that they laid these out and designed them. Again, I am a fan of the look. I'm not a huge fan of the actual headband itself. I feel like that just kind of sticks out a little bit too far, but it makes it where it will fit any size head, except I think you're going to have issues if you have a smaller head. Now the impedance level on these headphones comes in rated at 18 ohms, and I found that these were easy to drive. I kind of expected these to need an amp at all times, and I do still recommend an amp because I think that's how you're going to get the most out of these. But if you're just plugging them straight into your phone or your Switch or the Steam Deck or something like that, I still feel like you're going to be able to get enough volume without feeling like you have to always max it out. But again, I use these with my ARC MK2 amp, and I found with that amp it was more than enough to power these. I really didn't have to listen to these over half volume, which is very impressive, because I have tested some other headphones that I've had to just crank the volume all the way up and it still didn't seem like it got loud enough. So, you know, do keep that in mind, that you don't always have to carry around an amp, but it's still recommended to be able to get the most out of them. Speaking of the amp and the sound in general, if you just use these without kind of tuning these in any kind of way and just plugging them straight into an amp, just kind of like as a flat EQ, that's exactly what you get. I mean, I feel like these are tuned pretty neutral in general. I do feel like they kind of lean a little bit more towards the treble, so it is slightly boosted there. The bass is excellent. It's tight. It's very neutral just listening to it as it is. But I also found, again, plugging them into my ARC MK2, once I turned on the DSP, which is basically the amp within the amp, it tuned these perfectly. It brought out the low end in a way where it kind of let it be a little bit more loose. It kind of gave it that subwoofer type feel, but it still retained its tightness. So if you hear the drums hit, you can actually hear that impact and hear it move on from one hit to the other. It didn't allow them to get sloppy. It didn't get congested. It didn't get muddy. It just made it more fun to listen to by turning that DSP on. And really what it was doing to the EQ tuning was it boosted the low end slightly. It did boost the treble a little bit more, which I don't feel like these need a boost in the treble at all. And the mids took a slight step forward, but I really was impressed with the mids that these had anyway. I mean, if it was male or female vocalists, I can hear the details cleanly. They always stood out from the mix, but not like way up front. They were just slightly forward so they didn't get buried amongst everything else. And it did a really good job with like acoustic instruments. You could hear a lot of the details in the strumming of guitars, and I felt like the mids just were excellent on this pair. And the treble's either going to be you love or you hate it, because the treble on these are quite bright. They are very detailed, but I didn't find them to be harsh. I didn't hear that sibilance in the S's that you hear with some other headphones. It does cause some ear fatigue if you just listen to them at neutral, because again, it feels like it's leaning a little bit more on the treble. But once I turned that DSP on and it boosted the bass, it balanced it out more for me, and it kind of gave it that Harman curve where I could listen to these for a much longer period of time than just listening to them the way that they were out of the box. Now, as far as the sound stage and the sound imaging, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's not like above and below, but it is all around you, left to right, and very, very open. And same thing with the positional awareness. I could easily tell where sounds are coming from, but again, it's more left to right and not top to bottom. And so my overall opinion is this, that they do have a unique look and a unique design that already makes them stand out. But that really doesn't matter, because this isn't a pair that you would use in public. Unless you just are looking for a showpiece to sit on a shelf or by your desk, the looks aren't going to matter too much, because you're not going to see them when they're on your head anyway. But it does add some weight. So it may not be for some people to listen to for a long period of time. I didn't have any issues with this, but I can see the weight maybe being an issue for some, especially if you're not getting the clamp that you need with the headphones to kind of keep that weight off the top of your head. But away from all of that, the sound is excellent. I think if you're somebody that wants a neutral sounding pair of headphones, this definitely checks that box. But if you're also somebody that just likes to hear every detail but still have fun listening to music and being able to feel the bass and feel things pulled out of the music a little bit more, this pair of headphones can do that too. They just respond to EQing very well. And plugged into that ARC MK2, which is not an expensive amp, so you don't need one of those high-end amps to be able to pull everything out of these headphones. And so I highly recommend them, especially if you're looking at some of the higher-end Sennheiser headphones. They definitely compete with ones in the same price range, and I feel like they have a little more flexibility because of the way that they can EQ. So guys, that wraps up my video on the Moondrop Venus open back planar magnetic headphones. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.